All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. I hope everybody's having a very good Saturday morning. My guest today is Sylvia Ganier, who is the CFO of the Green Door Gourmet. Sylvia, welcome to the show. We're glad you're here.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
As most people who watch the show know, that my first question is usually irrelevant as we're getting people in, and you're wearing a very lovely hat that says okra. Is that a line from the Green Door Gourmet, or is that just, are you picking okra today and that's why you wore it?
Well, as most people that come to the farm know, I am the Empress of okra. It is my favorite vegetable, my favorite crop to grow, and it's okra season. Had a wonderful customer who brought me this hat, and I wear it with pride as the Empress of okra. It's my crown.
The Empress of Okra. So, is that an official designation? Has somebody designated that for you, or did you just claim that?
Self-appointed.
It's what? Say it again.
It's self-appointed.
Self-appointed. Okay, that's very, very good. And where are you right now? You're obviously, I'm outside. Obviously, you can tell. But you're not out on the farm. You're inside. Are you at the farm? Where are you? What are you doing?
Yes, the farm is mere steps away, but this allows me to not hear tractors running and everything else. I don't think it would be very nice audio with tractors in the background. You wouldn't be able to hear me very well. So,
Well, we sort of add to the ambiance of the program. But that's a very, I mean, I really like the hat. And do you have other hats like that says like tomatoes or, green beans? Do you have other hats like that or not?
well, I do have a tomato hat.
Yeah.
Some people used to call me Tomato Girl, but I've graduated to Empress of Okra. So I wear the tomato hat when I want to think of days gone by or when it's tomato season as well. But that hat is black and it's really hot outside. And so I like a lighter color hat when it's dark. That's farm logic right there.
All right. Whatever that means, but we're going to get into that in just a bit. Well, let's get started. So, again, welcome everybody. We're glad you're with us on a Saturday morning. Obviously, lots of things happening in the city and in the world and in America. I will say that this past week, the Metro Council did pass the city budget, which was good. We were there until about 11 o'clock that night, but got the budget passed, and overall, some good stuff in that budget. And, I think there was at least some discussion at the budget meeting about being very careful, as we go into the next fiscal year about economically what things are going to happen. But this year, looking forward into the fiscal year, seemed like things were pretty good overall for the budget. So we're glad that's done. Obviously, the council never stops, so we'll be back on July 5th, the day after the 4th of July. Our guest today is Sylvia Ganier, who is the CFO of the Green Door Gourmet. And Sylvia, we're really glad you're on. The CFO, most people think of that as the Chief Financial Officer, but you identified that as something different. What does the CFO stand for with the Green Door Gourmet?
Chief Farm Officer.
Okay, and is that also self-appointed, that self-designated?
Well, yes, it sounds better than head cook and bottle washer and row hoer and everything else. It's just a little easier title to wrap it all into that.
All right, sounds good to me. All right, so our first question always to all of our guests are, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? What have you been doing all this time? And how did you get to become the Chief Farm Officer of the Green Door Gourmet?
Well, I am the 5th child of 9th generation farmers from North Carolina. I grew up on a dairy farm in North Carolina, along with my brothers and sisters, and therein is the love of farming. For us, if you couldn't raise it or grow it, you were probably going to have a pretty lean winter. And so we learned that aspect of hard work and taking care of the land. At that point in time, we didn't realize what a valuable piece of knowledge that would become, especially in this modern world.
Yeah.
And so I graduated from Appalachian State University and was a radio and broadcaster in North Carolina for many years, and also a musician as well as a farmer. So multitasking has always been in my background. Moved to Nashville right out of college. I got very involved in the food and restaurant industry here. And I think that's where I met you, Vice Mayor, and have always had a penchant for the very best food you could find. So I decided I would like to try my hand at growing some of it. And here we are, 14 years later, into this great escapade called Green Door Gourmet.
Well, go back. So where in North Carolina exactly are you from?
I am from the suburbs of the smallest incorporated town in the United States, Bellevue, North Carolina, population 10.
Population 10. So was that your entire family? Is that
Pretty
what
much.
made that up? Okay. And where is this sprawling metropolis?
It's about halfway between Charlotte and Asheville in the lower part of the Blue Ridge, Shelby, Hickory, Lenore, that sort of area, if people are familiar with North Carolina. Real pretty part of the country.
Well, so I'm from Johnson City originally, so I'm not too far from that area. And obviously I've been to Boone, which is where Appalachian State is located. So why did you go to Appalachian? Well, go back to this. How many people were you in your high school class?
My high school class was actually a pretty large high school class because I went to school in the neighboring town. And so there were approximately 100 people in my high school class.
Okay, so it was a bigger school. You
Yes.
didn't have a school in your community of 10 people.
No, there was not. Still the little Black Rock school building that everyone in that small community went to, one room schoolhouse. We graduated up from that in about 1948. So
In 1948. Is there anything historic about your community that you would want to share? I mean, how big is it now? Is it moved from 10 people to 12? How big is it growing now?
well, I think it has a nice histosity that one of us moves away and somebody else comes back home. So I think it's probably about the same population, 10. I can't tell you about the cattle population there on the farm. It's probably still outnumbering all the people 10 to 1, but that's kind of how that goes.
All right. So you went to Appy State, and
I'm a mountaineer.
And what did you major in at Appy State?
Communications and radio and television broadcasting.
Okay, and that's what you did that, right?
I did. I worked in radio in North Carolina for many years, including having my own bluegrass show on WSOC FM in Charlotte.
Very cool. So you said you were a musician as well. So what did you do? Did you sing? Did you play an instrument? What were you doing?
I would claim myself as a singer. I know 3 chords on the guitar, so I'm not going to say I'm a guitarist by any way, shape, or form. But as Harlan Howard always said, it just takes 3 chords and the truth, and you've got a good country singer. So I'll attest to that. So I love old country and bluegrass. And at one point in time, I was a pretty known Patsy Cline impersonator. So that's been another part of my life. So I guess I have ADD. I just can't focus on one thing. I like to have a lot of things going at once.
Well, and that's quite okay. So you must have been in Charlotte for a while if you were doing a show in Charlotte. Is that right?
Well, I would always commute. I would actually go from college down for Sunday morning, run that show, work another broadcast. It was not a conflicting station, and then be back for classes at that time. They told me that I needed an internship, and most internships were unpaid. And I told them that I didn't have time for an unpaid internship. And so they said, well, if you can find a paid internship, good luck. And so I went out and got my own radio show.
I got it. All right. So tell me, how did you, what made you move to Nashville? What brought you to Nashville? Music. Okay. And was there something calling you to Nashville, or did you just know that that's where you needed to go if you wanted to pursue any type of career at this point in Nashville in music?
Well, it's, the home of country music, of course, Music City, USA. So it made sense to be here. And I got here and I discovered that I absolutely loved music and absolutely hated the music business.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And so how long did it take you to figure that one
It took about 2 years, but during that time, I met some amazing musicians that are still, lifelong friends, the Wooten brothers and Jim Hoke, Jonathan Yudkin, all these amazing musicians. They're great session players. And I decided I would rather have friends and enjoy music than to turn it into something that was going to become a daily chore. And I was lucky enough to know that food and hospitality had a great calling, and I didn't get tired of that. And I could handle being in the restaurant industry was easier than working on a dairy farm. So I decided, why not? Let's try this hospitality thing.
Okay. So tell people about the hospitality thing. When you made that decision to go to that, how did you start? And then eventually it would lead into what you're doing, obviously, right now.
So you show up to Nashville literally the day after you graduate college. You know you're going to have a job. I had nothing lined up, naive country girl coming to the big city. At that time we had telephone directories. I opened the telephone directory, point my finger, it lands on Boots Randolph's Club on Printer's Alley. I call them up and I'm like, "Are you hiring?" And they said, "Our hostess quit. If you can be here in an hour, you have a job." I was there, and that started the foray into hospitality.
How clever. And how clever your finger did the walking through the yellow pages. So so you got there, and what was it like working at the Boots Randolph facility?
Well, I learned a lot about how you maneuver people in a hospitality environment. They did a magnificent job, and I could be around music at the same time. If anyone remembers ever going down there, they had an amazing, 12-piece orchestra that played with Boots every night, and great comedians. And it was like having your own musical wonderland of some of the best talent in Nashville, that while you were waiting for the rotation, you could go down and you could listen to a song or hear this amazing person perform. So it's kind of a little bit of a dream. You're learning about hospitality at the same time you're learning about music. And the first night that I was there, they had a little stoop right outside the front door, and you could go out and just get a breath of fresh air for a moment. I happened to see this person I saw playing a concert over in North Carolina just a few days before I had moved, and said, "Hey, Reggie Wooten, you were amazing." And he said, "Who? Well, hi, if you want to come over and listen to the show next door." And there was a jazz club that had just opened. And he said, "Just come on over." And that's where I got to be friends with some great jazz musicians as well as country musicians too.
Great thing. All right. So tell me, okay, so let's talk about the Green Door Gourmet. Okay. How did that get started? Obviously, you have a background from your childhood in farming, but it was dairy farming. What made you want to go in this direction?
Complete insanity.
Okay. Besides that,
just,
what else was there?
So for many years, I had my own restaurant downtown called Chibo, which was on Church Street.
Mm-hmm.
And when I decided to retire from having my restaurant, I had just gotten married, and we had moved to this property, and it had a lot of land. And we decided, okay, we want to do a small kitchen garden. That's what I asked my husband for. Small, it's not
a small kitchen garden.
Small kitchen garden of some of the acreage here. And small is really not in his vernacular. And so 9 acres later, that's my small kitchen garden. And that was, if he's going to fence it, I'm going to grow it sort of challenge. Not that husband and wives ever have that sort of like, I'll show you I can do this. So 9 acres into it, I had different restaurant friends calling and saying, "Hey, what are you going to do with some of that produce?" And then we had people that would just stop by and say, what are you doing out there? And it's like, "I'm growing tomatoes and these specialty cucumbers and some flowers." And next thing you know, we're having a whole lot more people stop by, and we're farming more of the acreage. And now I need a couple of employees, and now we need a place where people can come and be in the shade when they want to shop at their for their farmers market produce. So it has just burgeoned from that over the last 14 years.
So you're at 9 acres, is that right?
No, we
Oh,
have in regenerative agricultural process right now about 152 acres.
oh, okay. All right. So how much and so when you say that, how much are you growing on? The whole thing or?
So with regenerative farming, you think of it as you are growing, even if you're just growing soil,
Okay.
you might not be growing, plants that are palatable for people, but you're working on making sure you're cover cropping the land, putting the right nutrients back into the soil, being a good steward of the environment. So we have about 152 acres into that rotation here on the farm.
Okay. So um, tell us how the whole thing operates in terms of, what is unique about your land. Obviously, that's one of the unique parts of it. But what is unique? What are you trying to achieve through your work? And then what is the end products? What are you growing and how are you selling?
The ultimate goal is to create the most nutrient dense food available to Nashvillians that I can possibly create. That is the number one goal, to create great food for a healthier community, and healthier not only for what you're putting in your body, but green space here that people can come and enjoy as they come out to find their produce and know where their food is grown. So that connection back to the land. If you think about this number, this is a very interesting number. 1% of our population now grows our food in this country. 1%. Of that 1%, 95% grows commodity crops. Commodity crops, people aren't familiar with that. That is corn, wheat, soy, sugar beets, the things that you get commodity pricing on the market for, and usually government supplement money. That other 5% grows what is known as specialty crops, and that's everything else that we eat. All the peaches, all the strawberries, all the sweet corn, all the squash, cucumbers, you name it, that is a specialty crop. So 5% of 1% is creating the food that we consume in our country.
Okay.
That should scare everyone. Nobody has the same knowledge of farming anymore. So we are working to make sure that we're helping young people understand about farmings. And, shoot, the person that comes in and says, what did I do to kill this plant? How do I not do that when I replant? So being an educational outlet for our community is very important, as well as growing this great nutrient-dense food.
And how do people, so how many people, would come in and say, I want to learn how to do this correctly? So do you have, are there internships, or how do people get involved in trying to figure all this stuff out with you all?
We offer a lot of classes. We also just offer, regular advice. People come out, we grow in our greenhouse plants that people can come and get plant starts in the spring, and they come to get their plant starts. They don't know how to amend their soil, or they don't know what to companion plant, or they think, oh, I've got a 4x6 raised bed, I need 48 plants to go in there, and they have no idea that the plant is going to get bigger and they're going to have too many plants. So we have to kind of help them, especially the beginning gardeners. So a lot of it is just one-on-one, coming out and talking to the farmer.
Okay. And if people don't know, how do they find you all? How do they find, if they is it through word of mouth? Is it just because you've been around for 14 years? How do people find out about taking advantage of your knowledge and learning how to do this properly?
Word of mouth, certainly. We have had a number of publications feature us for what we're doing with the education and the great tasting food. So they see us through that. Online, if you type in farm in Nashville, we come up. So Google search is always a good and a bad thing sometimes, because they think you grow everything, and you do not grow everything, but we try to guide them to the people we know that do. We have wonderful farm partners. So, I don't grow peaches, but I can send them to Tyler Sneed, or, someone the Nashville Farmers Market that would have peaches if I don't have peaches that I'm growing here. So we try very hard to be a community partner with other farms that don't have the same outreach or interest. You know, we're right here in Nashville. People are learning about us on a daily basis, and we have more traffic. We have about 3,000 new neighbors here with all the apartments springing up around us. So we have new neighbors, and we have all of the deer and everything else from when that land is clear. They all come find us too. So we
I
have
got
all
it.
those good things.
So, okay. So I was going to ask you, what do you grow, and how do you decide every year what you want to grow? Do you ever change, and how does that work?
We change constantly because the weather patterns change, and we have to figure out what is happening with that. We have to figure out what there is a glut in the market for, what the demand is. But since we began, we have added some very special crops. And so I'll tell you about 3 of those special crops. One is sorghum. So we actually grow and we do stalk to spoon in the jar, sell it. You can eat it right out of the jar, sorghum, which is a very old time Tennessee tradition. It is hard work for not a whole lot of product, but man, is it delicious. So sorghum is one thing that we do. We also have 5 different types of heirloom corn, including 2 Tennessee native corn that we're growing, and the Bloody Butcher and the Jimmy Red. We also do Wapsie Valley and Hopi Blue and Ohio Blue. So we have great heirloom corn. We mill that corn, we grind it into grits and cornmeal right here on the farm as well. So we have that, again, you know, stalk to your spoon sort of availability. And last but not least, about 5 years ago, a gentleman named Dr. David Shields, who started the Ark of Taste, which is based out of Charleston, South Carolina, and helps vegetables that are extinct pretty much come back from that extinction, Southern specialties. He brought 10 seeds to us for a native Tennessee peanut, said, good luck, and left them with us. And now it is back in propagation. We're able to give away some of those seeds to other farmers that want to bring it back in production. That's part of what we do, is we give, by participating in the Ark of Taste, we give seeds. So we never lose that seed bank again. But we have those Tennessee red mammoth peanuts that are available in our market. And maybe if I'm smart enough, I'm going to figure out how to turn that sorghum and those peanuts into a really great peanut brittle that'll be a true Tennessee original peanut brittle as well.
Well, when you do that, if you'll let me know, I'll come right over. So what other things, what else do you grow on the farm?
We grow 80 different varieties of vegetables throughout the course of the year. So carrots, regular squash, zucchini, winter squash, corn, and our big crop is strawberries, of course, that we just finished up with. Everybody loves the Greenville strawberries. They're the best. And we don't use any chemical on the strawberries. So most strawberries are grown with about 300 pounds per acre of 18 different chemicals. Ours have 0, so people can taste that difference of truly ripened right here in the field strawberries and get those here. So people kind of fight for those strawberries. So we've made it through strawberry season. Now
right, I'm glad you made it through strawberry season. So if people want to, all right, to come out and buy your stuff, what is the best way to do it? I mean,
so we have an on-farm market, and our market is open to the public Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from 9 to 4. We also offer a CSA, which stands for Community Supported Agriculture. We call it a local farm box. And you can opt in and get one on the weeks you choose, or you can also get one month-long subscription at a time. So you can order your box and come get your box during those market hours as well. We offer volunteer opportunities and educational experiences outside of the regular market hours, and all that is posted there on our website at greendoorgourmet.com. And whether it's a cooking class, so you can learn how not to be terrified of cutting a butternut squash open, how to put together a container garden so you can grow your herbs and not kill them. And all kinds of different things are available there on the website. So you can come not just the market hours when we have those special events.
Okay. So let's switch for just a minute to a kind of a broader thing. And that is, what you're doing is you're trying to, through the farm, do some very sustainable practices, figure out how to make things last, how to bring crops back, how to share, that type of thing, how to use the land in a much more probably effective and longer term sustainable way. What do you say to people who are looking towards the future and going, how are we going to sustain our food source, particularly with climate change and everything else that may be coming our way? Is your way the way of the future? Is that what you're working on? And what would you tell the rest of us who are going like, how are we going to do all this?
The only thing constant is change. And so we are going to be in an ever-changing climate for what we do here as farmers. Farming is not just the type of farming we do. There is vertical farming. There is hydroponic farming. There's all different kinds of farming. And I'm not the person to, I can say I'm the Empress of Okra, but I will not be the person to tell you one type of farming is a greater type of farming than another. We have growing population and people need to eat. So being able to come together and sit down and figure out what those methodologies that best make use of the resources and not deplete those resources, I think is very important, but people still have to eat. So if it means vertical farming or some hydroponic farming instead of soil grown, I personally don't think it is nutrient dense as other food, but if it gets food on the table for people, that might be what we have to do in the interim until we figure out what's happening. And addressing some of the climate change issues, I think you have to also be willing to know that we might not be able to grow yellow squash here in Tennessee if we keep having all the issues with powdery mildew, which comes from heat, then getting too wet, then heat, then getting too wet. We might have to grow a type of squash that's more acclimated to another part of the world where they're already growing that and they have hot and wet, hot and wet. So we have to think about that as farmers and not just try to stay so staunch in what we grow, but not lose the traditions as well. So if we can preserve those traditions, great, but know that we have to make sure that we're being good stewards of land as we're doing it.
How do you at the beginning of a season look at all these different things and then try to figure out what you really want to grow and what may not be, suitable this particular year? I know that changes, it changes over time. It doesn't change. It may change season to season, but do you look at what you think is going to happen during the year and then try to figure out what you're going to grow from that standpoint?
First thing we always do is look at what we failed at miserably the last year. And there are always failures. There are always issues that, oh, if I would have just thought about that, wouldn't I have been so much smarter than what I am? But we also say, okay, that didn't work here. Why did it not work? Go get a soil test. Oh, this doesn't have what it needs in the soil. So there is a lot of work and research that has to go into what you're doing. We have found that growing tomatoes out in the open field, we can do that, but we have to plant 3 times as many to get the same yield of a nice looking tomato. Most people don't like to buy one that's blemished, right? They don't understand food waste and all of that. So we found that if we put them in one of our big hoop houses, it works so much better. We can control when the rain is hitting them. And we're going to grow tomatoes in the hoop house. Lesson learned, because we had failure.
Okay. So you're learning from past experiences, you're learning from your mistakes. How do we, I guess, maybe as a nation, do the same thing? And do you see, are you involved enough to kind of see what's happening across the country in terms of its growing processes? I know a lot of stuff is grown in the Midwest and on thousands and thousands of acres. I worry that as things change, do you think we're keeping up with the latest trends and the practices to make sure that we are going to be okay?
I believe that regenerative agriculture is beginning to catch on, even in some of the larger Midwest farms. I'm seeing those reports. I'm seeing that happen. And do a lot with looking at the USDA site, and I am on the ag board here in Davidson County. So it's very important to me to make sure I'm keeping up with what's going on within our county as well as the nation, so I can help advise extension on what is really happening out there. The regenerative agriculture movement is by far, in my opinion, better than just strictly organic or even going beyond biodynamic, because you're really growing dirt. And if you look back at the Dust Bowl situation, that's half of what caused that was agriculture, decimating the plains. And the next thing you know, we didn't have the knowledge or didn't take the time to look at what that was. So I think the regenerative agriculture is beginning to catch on, and I think it's vital for people to understand that if you don't have really good soil, you don't take care of that, you're not going to be able to feed your population. You are going to have impact into what is happening around us with climate. You're going to have all those different things, and you're not going to get the nutrient into the food. And our food has been dumbed down. So we have vegetables that are 50% less in nutrient value than 50 years ago. So we got to up the stakes.
All right. So I was going to say, how do we learn better? I mean, how do more people understand, about this type of practice? And do you think that that there are more people who are more aware of what we need to be concerned about in terms of growing food?
There are people who are very interested in it. They should seek out a farmer, not look at a soundbite on the headline on Google or something like that. It really is coming out because it is not a one size fits all. So you have to come out and see what's happening within that community and why that farmer is doing things a particular way. I had a question the other night. We had a sustainability group out for a hayride and talking about that, and they wanted to know about tiling and why tiling was so, hard on the land. And I said, well, certain types of tiling are, but here we do swales because if we didn't do that, we would have runoff. So talking to the farmer and having a farmer explain in terms that people can understand is really important. So that's the most important thing you can do as a community member is go find a farmer and, buy them a cold glass of water and sit down under a shade tree for 5 minutes and pick their brain.
And did you say tiling and
tiling?
So okay. So what is that? What are those terms? What do they mean?
So you see beautiful pictures in China of all the rice paddies in the rice field where you have those terraced stacking. So that's a type of tiling. And so it's a lot of plowing and tilling and layering the land in a particular way. We don't need to do that here in Middle Tennessee. We do have some slopes, but making general swales that help carry the water runoff. You can explain to someone that they don't need to tile their land. If somebody comes in and tells them they need to tile their land, I would tell them to get a second opinion from another farmer and see what they could do. So it's understanding the land. So if you're a farmer, you have to understand geology, geography, biology, horticulture. You got to be able to count. You need to do weights and measures. So you've got to have a pretty well-rounded balance in what you're thinking about. So farmers are kind of Renaissance people in their own way.
And did you get a lot of that at Appalachian State? Is that where you got it all?
I got a lot of that on the family dairy farm in North Carolina.
I figured probably. Let's talk about, okay, so you mentioned food waste. So obviously you grow a lot of different things, but I assume that there is always food waste. What do you all do at the Green Door Gourmet to deal with food waste? What do you do with it to make sure that you don't have a lot of it?
So just to clarify, there's a difference in wasted food and food waste. Wasted food is what happens when you go to the grocery store and you buy strawberries and you bring them home and you immediately wash them and put them in your refrigerator and you come back in 6 hours, they're mushed and you throw them out. That is wasted food. Or you go to a restaurant and you ask for a to-go box and you forget your to-go box on the table. Food waste is food that is perfectly imperfect, that is non-salable in a regular marketplace situation, or it is a secondary type of piece of the plant that people don't know how to use. So a good example of that would be broccoli stalks. People think you just cut the florets off and they forget that that stalk is really beautiful and you can make it into a lot of different things. Again, education and knowledge is power. So we try to show people with our cooking classes what you can do with all parts of the plant. So that's very important. Second, we have created a Tennessee Department of Agriculture manufacturing kitchen that I can take that tomato that has a slight bruise that, Jim, you and I know that it is perfect for eating when it just starts to have a little slack on the top, maybe just a little brown, starting to give in a little bit. That's when it's at this perfect time, but that's not a tomato that the regular home consumer is going to buy. That becomes tomato soup, tomato sauce, all different things, tomatoes here that people can come into our farm market and purchase as ready to go, grab and go food or canned product. So
I mean, so I know that we have both a lot of wasted food and food waste in this country. So education, I think, is very, very important, and understanding that you don't throw it away. For the people watching, is the best thing to do. I mean, if you go to a grocery store, you can buy bruised fruit. It's okay. But I know that a lot of people don't. And I know that the grocery stores probably give it away to somebody else and it gets used some other way. But we waste so much stuff in this country. And so I guess the idea is, how do you get people to understand, don't waste it, or don't put water on your strawberries when you get them home and then put them in the refrigerator, because they will be mush.
40% of food in our country is going right into the landfill, and that should not be the case. So education is super important for that. Finding those layered segments. Again, we'll take that second, and we call it seconds produce or chef select sometime, because if you're going to a restaurant, that chef who gets a case of tomatoes is not going to throw away a tomato because it has a bruise. It's going to get chopped up and the top sliced off, and it's going to go on your sandwich. So home consumers need to understand how to better utilize their food and not to be afraid of something that is perfectly imperfect, as I call it. Not every vegetable can be a supermodel. So we just need to get over the visual aspect of food and know that peaches, once they really started to slacken a little bit, are going to make the best peach ice cream or peach sorbet. You don't want them hard as a rock. The flavor's not going to be there. So since we don't have people that farm, we don't have people that cook a lot at home, until we start that happening. Maybe it's bring back home economics in school. Then people would have to learn a little bit more of this stuff too.
All right. That's going to be your job, to bring back home economics. Okay. Before I forget, what can you do with a broccoli stalk? Cut off and most of the time I throw it away. So I'm doing something bad. So what should I be doing?
Bad, Jim.
I'm so sorry. Okay.
So what you can do is you can take that stalk and you can use a little hand tool, or you can use a food processor if it has the blade in it, and shred that into a slaw. Toss that in with a little bit of cabbage, put your favorite coleslaw dressing on it, and you have amazing broccoli slaw. When you buy broccoli slaw in the store and you pay $5.99 for that little tiny 8-ounce bag of that stuff that's already shredded up, that's all the stalks. You're not getting a lot of florets. Second thing you can do is you can cook down those stalks after you peel the stalk a little bit to get some of the harder outside off. You can make that into your broccoli soup instead of wasting your florets in your soup. So that's two.
All right. So is that in a recipe book that you have, or am I getting that because you just told me? Do people know how to do that? What I usually do is I take them and I throw them outside for animals, because I don't know what else to do with them.
Well, there is a hierarchy of food use. And if you're not familiar with that, first of all, we want to feed it to people. And so you have your retail first, you have your retail seconds. And then after that, a lot of things that are seconds are given to food banks and food pantries. And we participate with that. We work with Second Harvest Food Bank and the National Food Project, and a lot of things that if I just know I'm not going to be able to get to it in time for our manufacturing kitchen because I've got way too much happening. We're picking strawberries every day. I might not get to everything else that's coming in on the farm. We'll donate. So feeding people is the #1 highest use of any food that is grown, keeping it here in our community. After that, you have feed animals. After
Mhm.
feed the animals, our chickens are the best fed chickens on River Road. I'll tell you that for sure, maybe in all of Nashville. That's why some of them are 12 years old. It's really amazing. We've got some old girls that are still kicking it out there on our really great vegetables. After that, you have a composting program. And we do make our own compost here on the farm. And that keeps the nutrient base here on the farm. We put that back into the fields and we don't lose anything. So we're really as close to a zero waste farm as you could possibly be.
Okay.
And you
All
get
right.
that
So,
information by coming to see me.
okay. So, I'm thinking about the broccoli stalks, and I'm thinking about what you just said, and making sure that we try to figure out better ways to utilize food and the food that we typically throw away. But then I also worry about food deserts, and we have those, in Nashville, and we have them across the country. Um, because of what you do you have ideas about what we should be doing to try to, first of all, try to make sure that we provide healthy food options to people who usually don't have access to it? What would you say to that? I mean, because what you're doing is growing healthy food, but obviously a lot of people don't have access to it or don't have the money to get access to it.
That's a twofold question. So let's kind of take that apart.
Okay.
One, the accessibility. Many markets are not set up to handle fresh produce. They don't know how to handle it. They don't have the right coolers and that sort of thing. So I think having a opportunity that farmers could basically stack the bus, if you will, and have a renovated school bus or something like that that is made to take produce into some of the food deserts on particular days. It becomes a mobile farmers market. It is set up to accept SNAP and WICS benefits, and to be able to make sure that we're going into those underserved communities instead of worrying about how's a brick and mortar going to solve something. That's a part of it. With that, having someone who is there on the bus that can tell people exactly what I told you about the broccoli stalks, they
Yeah.
know how to use all the different things. The other component of that is you have to retrain people to want to commit to making their own food. It's so much easier just to go and grab that sandwich that's already made and you're out the door. So you have to give them the knowledge base. You have to rebuild the taste buds for wanting something fresh. So it's a delicate balance between that. You can have accessibility solved, but if you don't have the desire to have it as well curtailed in, it gets to be a little slippery slope, and then you've got food waste, and we don't want that, do we?
No. So tell me if you could change some of the way we do things. I mean, how do you get people to cook more? Do you I mean, you have people come out on the farm and watch, but there does seem to be a tendency for people to eat out more and not cook at home and not use the stalks of the broccoli. How do you get people to uh, change the way we do some of the stuff?
You have to show them that it's delicious first, that it tastes better. You have to kind of reawaken their palate. People have forgotten what great food can taste like if you make it at home. And I think finding connectivity, and this might go to a greater thing you were talking about in the community. We are a very instantaneous gratification society these days. And we also have lost a lot of the connectivity with our family members. I remember as a little kid going out picking figs off a fig tree with my dad and coming in and making the fig jam. We don't have that same sort of culinary connectivity generationally anymore. People wait until they're cleaning out their great grandparents' things to realize I never learned how she made that cornbread that I love so much at holiday when I went to see her all the time. I think if we could just get a little of that familial connectivity back, that it just might be small enough, move the needle just a little bit to get people interested in doing some of this stuff again. We've got to learn to connect as people before we connect with food, and maybe we do it through food.
Even if it's, I like that. I mean, even if it's just a small garden that you have in the back where you grow something and then you do something with it as a family, I think that's a good thing.
Pre-pandemic, we had about 5,000 students a year come from metro and surrounding counties to learn about food and where food comes from.
Yeah.
To see a child go out and pull a carrot out of the ground and be astonished that's how a carrot grows, then all of a sudden they want to eat it. We had one, I'll never forget this parent. They came back out the day after the field trip and said, I need to find sorrel. Where do I find green sorrel? It's the only green thing my child has ever eaten and they love it. I need it. And I'm like, great, it's right over here. And let's dig up a clump and I'll give you a little bit to take home and put in your garden. And then your child can go out and get that green sorrel and put it in the salad. And the next thing you know, they're eating the salad. So it's fun.
So I know this was going on pre-pandemic. Have you started to see, as we try to get through on the other side of the pandemic, are more and more kids? Did you have kids come out this year?
We are hoping to relaunch in the fall. There was still so much going on in the spring. Mask, no mask, school, no school, all of that sort of stuff. So we're kind of letting that settle down a little bit, moving to the fall. We did have a few middle and high school groups come out and help us plant some things, help us harvest some things, learn about where food is coming from. So we had a few of those middle and high school groups. They're a little easier for us to contain and control. And so hopefully by this fall, but for certain by next spring, what happens with the little uptick in the coronavirus coming back around, some different variants might put a damper on the fall. So we're just in a wait and see mode, but we can't wait to have kids back out on the farm. That's a big part of what we do. It's all in their hands. If we can't teach them to cook and garden, we're in big trouble.
Well, I will tell you a personal story. I did try to grow carrots one time. This was many, many years ago. And I followed the instructions on the packet and I planted the carrots and they looked really good from the top, with a lot of green shoots coming off. And I waited the proper length of time and then I pulled them and they were the size of toothpicks. I'm not sure what happened. So I really couldn't eat them that much and there wasn't a lot of food waste because they weren't very big. So I don't know what I did, but I may have to talk to you about that later.
Yes, I don't think you thinned them, but
I don't know what I did, but
you can use the carrot tops to make soup or stew or a really great carrot top pesto. So don't throw them away.
Okay, next time I won't throw them away. All right, so let me ask you this, and we've kind of maneuvered around it, but the future of growing. You talked about hydroponic farming. You talked about vertical farming. Do you see more of that coming online in the near future, just because of more limitations on space and the need maybe to grow more stuff inside, and control a little bit more of the climate? What do you see in terms of you're doing this as the chief farm operator? What do you see the future of farming as being?
Well, that is certainly one prong of the wheel, if you will, spoke of the wheel of farming. In cities that they don't have a lot of land access, we've got to grow food somewhere. It keeps it in that city. Again, I don't think it's as nutrient dense, but I think if you're picking and choosing the crops, you're not going to be able to grow all the things that people think you can grow hydroponically well. It's really your more leafy greens, and that you have kind of a 30-day cycle. You're harvesting that and then you're moving along, fresh herbs, that sort of thing. So as long as we realize that's the type of farming for hydroponic farming we're talking about, it's just not going to be the place you're going to get sweet potatoes by the tens of thousands. Right. That's still going to have to be a lot of land farming for those sorts of things, or our corn production or that sort of thing. So I don't say that is not a necessary thing to happen, but I don't want to lose what we have with our small and medium-sized family farms integrated into our rural communities. If those go by the wayside, I'm just so worried about our rural communities as well as our larger cities. The rural communities, we have 14 different food sheds that come into the Nashville area. So there was a great food study done a couple of years ago by Ken Meter, and it showed that the amount of food that comes into Nashville from those 14 different food hubs from surrounding areas into Nashville, which are all, pushed by the rural communities, is most of our local availability into all of our farmers markets and everything else. If we start losing those communities, we really are going to lose a lot of nutrient density food coming into our county.
Okay. We got a lot of work to do, Sylvia, so we better get busy.
Yes.
All right. So if people want to find out about the Green Door Gourmet, best place to do is going online or just come on out and visit. Is that the best thing to do?
I say I'm pretty much here 24/7. So definitely come in and see us in person here on the farm. We always love to talk to our customers. I really would prefer you didn't bring species of plants that have disease on them to the farm for me to identify. That does happen a lot. So I might ask you to take it right back home with you. If you're bringing me some pigweed or anything else like that, I'm going to say, please take that right on back home, but I'll at least tell you what it is. And if you want to know more about us, certainly visit us online or snag a seat at one of our classes or upcoming events here at Green Door to learn more about your food or taste something really delicious while you're doing it.
So the website is what?
greendoorgourmet.com. And we have a really big Facebook and Instagram presence. So hop on there and follow us on all that good social media. We have some really fun reels of things that we've been cultivating and harvesting. We just cut some rye the other day, so you can ride along with the tractor driver as he's cutting the rye and seeing it being milled as well.
And the address of the farm, if people want to come out and go to the store and go see what's going on. You don't want them out all the time, but the store is open, you said, what, Thursday through Sunday?
Thursday through Sunday from 9 to 4.
Okay.
And you can punch in on your GPS 7007 River Road Pike. You got to get all 3 words in there. It'll send you to Ashland City. River Road Pike, Nashville. That'll bring you right to the Green Door Gourmet gate. Or you can even give us a call at 615-942-7169 if you need any other clarification on address or website or more information. We actually answer the phone.
Oh, whoops. So there you are. So you do basically everything, correct?
Well, I do a lot of everything.
I got it. Well, I appreciate you being our guest. I probably have a lot more questions, but I will call you separately. But this has been really, really interesting. I appreciate you taking the time. I know you've got a lot of stuff going on. And I know that we will not be, we're not going to have a show next week because it's the 4th of July. Are you all open next weekend?
We are open next weekend, and we would love to see everybody for their tomatoes and sweet corn and broccoli stalks.
All right. Well, I may come out. I promise not to bring any sick plants. I just may come out myself. All right.
That sounds great.
Anyway, Sylvia, thank you very much for doing this. Very, very important information and a very important topic in the long run. So thank you for the time. I appreciate you giving us all this wisdom. We will see everybody in a couple of weeks. And Sylvia, I probably will see you next week when I come out. Okay.
Can't wait.
All right. Everybody have a good rest of the weekend and have a good 4th of July holiday. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Okay. Thank you, Sylvia.
Bye.
Bye.